The Vancouver real estate market is slower than usual, there is no question about it. However, last month alone we had 2,000 people buy properties. So who are these people exactly? I think the answer to that question will be helpful for a lot of buyers as well as a lot of sellers. My name is Oleg. I'm a local real estate agent here in Vancouver for the last 11 years. And in today's video, we will talk about who exactly is buying in this market, at least based on my experience. First, let's talk about people upsizing, because this is the category of buyers for which buying in a slow market makes the most sense. In fact, my wife and I are sort of considering upsizing right now, and I myself am looking for a larger property, because when the market is slow, you actually win more than you lose when you upsize, especially if you're upsizing from a townhouse to a detached property. Let's say all things being equal, the market drops by 10%. Well, a $1.5 million house dropping by 10% is $150,000 less. And the $750,000 townhouse dropping by the same 10% is only $75,000 loss. Which means that if you're buying a detached property, they lost the value of about $150,000 as opposed to your property lost value of about $75,000. So it does make sense to upsize into a larger properties, because if you go into the more expensive property, in all likelihood, you're actually gaining more than you're losing. The numbers I provided are here, of course, just as a simple example. In real world, things aren't as clear cut. All properties don't drop at the same rate, and different types of townhomes, different types of homes drop at different rates. Sometimes they don't go down. But in general, upsizing in a slow market makes sense. But it doesn't make sense for everyone, especially people who have purchased a property within the last sort of 3 to 4 years, pretty much from 2021 and on, because these people are the ones who are taking the biggest hit on their values. If you bought before then, you probably still have enough equity in your home to be able to sell and not lose any money. But if you bought in 2022, let's say, chances are your property probably lost some value and it's much harder to upsize. Still possible, but it creates more challenges. Another group of buyers that I see entering the market right now are first-time home buyers who are renting, especially the tenants who got a move-out notice from their landlords, or their landlords put the place on the market. I actually got a few emails and phone calls from buyers in this situation. And in this situation, in a lot of cases, it makes sense to enter the market, because chances are if you go into another rental, you'll have to sign a lease for at least a year, and you won't be able to sort of buy for another year. To a lot of people, that's fine. To others, maybe that doesn't make sense. So they would rather enter the market, especially when the market is down, as opposed to postpone the purchase for another year. If you have the down payment ready, and if you're confident in your job security for the near future, I think it's a pretty good idea to start looking at least, but possibly even buy something, especially as a first-time home buyer. Another group of people that I see buying in this market are actually people downsizing. These are the people that have owned their house for 20 plus years. They already paid off the mortgage, and even though the market is sort of down, the prices haven't come down that much. And for them, it doesn't really make a big difference all that much, because either way, they will be sort of winning from the real estate market. And looking at condos, looking at townhouses, something to downsize into is a lot more preferable than staying in this sort of big empty property. The stock market volatility, especially in the last month or so, has really poured a lot of fuel on this fire. A lot of people's retirements are sort of uncertain. So I see more people who are looking to downsize are entering the market in order to buy a one-bedroom condo or one-bedroom and a den and sell their home and use that money as part of their retirement fund. Another group of people that I get frequent calls from, no matter what the market is, are people who are either planning to start a family or are starting the family right now. This is very common. Let's say you're expecting your first or second child, you don't have enough space and you have enough job security. Well, it's a great time to sort of look into upsizing or look into getting into your first property. Because if you have a small child, you know how difficult those early stages are. let alone trying to buy and move. So if you're expecting a child or if you're planning to have a child, it does make sense to sort of plan ahead, move into the property first, and then sort of have the child, especially if the property needs a renovation. That adds another wrinkle to the equation. So this process is a lot smoother. And again, in a down market, especially if it's your first property, you do have a lot of advantages today. The last group of people that I see entering the market quite a bit are actually family type investors. Now, a lot of people are not talking about these type of investors, but they are there and they are looking at some good pre-sale properties. This is typically a family who owns their primary home. Usually it's a detached property. They pull out some cash from the property and they put that into a down payment for a brand new place that's going to be built in a few years' time. For the pre-sale market, this type of investor is actually a pretty small percentage of overall buyers, but these buyers are always there because they're always planning for the future of their children. Let's say you have children who are about 18, 19 years old. You know, by the time the place is built, let's say 4 years from now, the kids will be 23, 24, 25. They will need a place to live on their own, and it's pretty good a way to set them up for future success by getting into a pre-sale early on and then maybe helping them with a mortgage, or maybe by that time they get a job, they graduate college, and they're able to qualify for the mortgage themselves. But there are some groups who are currently sort of absent from the market. I'm talking about investors and speculators. Investors are the people who are looking usually for a long-term investment, either short-term rentals or long-term rentals. But what I'm talking about long-term investment, they're looking to hold the property for a long time and have long-term tenants or short-term tenants pay off their mortgage. Because the rental rates in Vancouver have been dropping quite drastically, plus we have seen quite high increases in interest rates, it wasn't as lucrative for investors to enter the market, and this group of buyers currently is not as active. I almost get no calls from people who are looking into buying an investment. I have a pool of ready investors who are sort of always looking for a good property in a good building, but generally speaking, not a lot of new investors are entering the market at the moment. Another group of people that is missing from the market, as I mentioned, are speculators. This group of buyers are looking for a short-term gain. Usually they look at pre-sales. They're trying to buy something right now, hold it until it's pretty much built or right before it's built, and either assign the property hoping to make a profit, or complete on the property and then sell it afterwards, again trying to make a profit. So as opposed to long-term investors, this group of buyers is just trying to use their cash to their advantage and sort of quickly make money. Now, in real estate, there is no such thing as quick money. This still takes a couple of years, but they're not looking to hold the property for 10, 20 years. They're looking to hold the property for 2 to 3 years. If you're a buyer currently looking to get into the market, you have to judge your own personal situation to see if it makes sense for you to enter the market or not. Market conditions are very important, but the second piece of the puzzle is your personal situation. Sometimes the market conditions are not exactly favorable, but you just have to buy, and it does make sense to buy because not buying would actually cost you more headache and more money in the long term. If you're a seller in this market, I think it's also important to know this information because then you can sort of tailor your marketing and your approach to selling the property to attract the largest pool of buyers, the people who are actually buying. And I am starting to see that actually happening with some developers. I'm starting to see a shift from developers on focusing on more amenities in the building, on providing more for the buyers. They're not just looking to attract investors, packing as many condos as possible into the building, not really caring about the floor plans, not really caring about the overall square footage, just trying to maximize that price per square foot because investors don't really care. They don't have to live in these buildings. Now I see a lot of new pre-sales are focusing sort of on a community, focusing on providing a convincing argument why buyers should buy in their development and should move into their development. So that is the shift, at least anecdotally speaking, that I see happening in the market right now. I appreciate you watching this video all the way until the end. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this in the future. And if you're a first-time home buyer and you don't know where to start, I have an absolutely free buyer's guide linked in the description below. It's not a sales pitch. You don't even need to sign up for anything. It's just sort of a tool to help you understand how the process of buying works. And of course, feel free to shoot me an email, give me a phone call, shoot me a text message if you'd like to have some advice on real estate, especially here in Metro Vancouver. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.